Hi everyone, and welcome to the first in a series of videos on Substance Designer. I wanted to start with the interface, as I know a lot of tutorials kind of overlook it or just assume that people know where different parts are. And I personally know from my own experience that when you first open Substance Designer, even without any of this stuff in it, it's pretty terrifying because there's just so many menus and so many icons and you have absolutely no idea where anything is. So I kind of just want to use this file that I've been working on as an example, just to show the different parts. So in the top left, as is pretty standard for most Windows applications, we have things like File, Edit, Tools and stuff like that. The only real time you go up there is either to save your work or to make a new project, and we'll be looking at how to do that in the next video. Just below there is the Explorer. So in the Explorer you generally have your graphs that you're working on. As you can see here, I have dirtground.sbs, which is a .substance file, and then I have two graphs. I have the dirtground graph, which is the one currently highlighted, and I have a twig graph, which I'm using for the little twigs in the material. So I'm using both of those graphs. Just to the right, we can see this absolute mess of meshed connected nodes. And this is the graph editor. So this is the main working area. You can zoom in and out of this by scrolling, and you can pan and sort of move things around. And this is where we will be working, spending the sort of majority of our time connecting nodes and producing outputs and things like that. On the bottom left, we have the library. Now, depending on your workflow, you may use this quite a lot. Personally, I don't at this stage. I just sort of use a shortcut to add nodes into the graph editor. And we also have a search for different pre-made materials. So if you want to sort of look at how they're done, you can do that. Over on the right, we have 3D view properties. So at the moment, we have this highlighted. We can look at different aspects of the property, and that's because I have set this to these properties. So this is a dynamic window, is probably what I'm trying to say. And it changes depending on what we have selected, and there's a few different selection modes. So if I go over here, for example, you'll notice that this node has a black and white checked box in a circle, and if I go to any other node, they don't have it. There's literally not another node in the entire graph that will have it, and that's because this icon represents that this node is currently being viewed in the 2D viewer. And you know that because, as you notice, there is also a black and white cube in this one. So this represents the 2D viewer, and if I were to double click on any node, let's say this one, you can see that that changes, and again that black and white cube now moves from this one over to this one. And if I was to do it here and just double click, you can see that it moves here. You'll also notice that I get this document icon now when I double click, and if I were to double click here, it would move back there. And that's because this is the properties menu, and remember I said that this property menu on the right is dynamic. So these are the properties for this node that I have selected. And if I were to go up here and double click on this one, you notice that they change, and I now have the properties for this one. So this is really handy. It means that we don't have to have lots of different windows open, and we can sort of adjust the properties of the things that we have selected. But it also means that we can have different views of both the so the properties. If I just single click, and I can have the 2D view of a different graph. So maybe let's see if I can find an example of what I want to do this. Maybe here I would like to change the properties of this one. Maybe I want to change the maybe the tiling on it, or the scale of the shape, or maybe even just the actual pattern of the shape. But I want to see what the impact of those changes are on this warp. So I could sort of double click on here to see the warp, and then single click here, and I can change these properties and see how it's changed later on in the mesh. Or I could even you know, have a look much later on, and I could sort of double click here and see what this is, and then single click maybe here and change these, and I can see the effect of that on there. And then the last one that we have is obviously the 3D view that you can see just to the left of the 2D view. Now this is dynamic as well. This gives us an updated view, or a sort of rendered in the environment view of what our material looks like at the moment. And we can sort of left click and move this around. We can even you know, sort of pan, you know, zoom it and pan it and do all sorts of funky things here. Yeah, so we can sort of see how it looks when things change. But we can also change what we're looking at in here. So if we wanted to see a slightly earlier version, so here we can see that we have this cube view, whereas here we had this view. And you can see here that these maps are all combined to see this 3D view. So if we wanted to, we could just right click on this, and we could click on View in 3D View, and we could see that that's now changed. We're now seeing it before we've added the water level. And if I was to change to this, we can see that we're sort of back to normal. Yeah, so if we were to view output in 3D view, we can sort of see all of the different aspects of it. I'll just reset that. And that's it really. That's an introduction to the interface. On the next videos, we're going to be looking more at how to start generating basic maps and materials and how they work. So thanks for listening.